بالنسبة للآيبول بيها 3 important layers. عندنا هاي اللاير اللي قدامنا، هاي نسميها Sclera. Sclera it's a layer, it's the first layer surrounds the eyeball. It's a white in color, it's filled with collagen fibers. السكليرا نفسها بيها important vessels، بيها epicellary layer اللي صايرة فوق السكليرا. It's important to provide the vessels toward the sclera and toward the other layers. And this is the second layer, which is known by the name of choroid. This is the choroid layer. And this layer, it's very important to give the important vessels and nourishment to the other layers. And this, the deepest layer, this is called the retinal layer. It's filled with the sensory receptors in order to transmit all the sensation of the light as a visual pathway to the optic nerve. Anterior part of the eyeball. Anterior part of the eyeball قدامنا هذا كل الجزء نسميه anterior chamber. Anterior chamber هو يبدي من الانتيريور to the iris. الايرس اللي هو هذا الجزء، هذا الايرس، فهو يبدي من الايرس to the cornea، هذا الانتيريور chamber. ورا الايرس يجي البوستيريور chamber. The most anterior part in the anterior chamber اللي هو هذا الجزء، هذا اللي هي الكورنيا. Cornea, it's a layer within the anterior part of the anterior chamber. As we can see, the cornea is transparent. Why? Because it is avascular, this is first, and second because of the paucity in cells and because of the arrangement of its fibers. The cornea is very important for refraction and also for protection of the eye. Anterior to the cornea عندنا conjunctiva. Conjunctiva بيها 3 important parts. بيها first part اللي هو palpebral part, which is within the eyelid. بيها second part اللي هي bulbar part. وبيها pharyngeal part. We have the pharyngeal part, which is a point of separation. هذا point of separation between the sclera and the cornea نسميه limbus. الليمبس هذا هو anatomical part. عندنا surgical part يكون anterior له. من نوخر الكورنيا راح يجي هذا اللي هو anterior chamber. anterior chamber بهذا الجزء هذا اللي هو point of separation between the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber، هذا اللي هو iris. iris بيها important central part اللي هو نسميه pupil. And the iris contains the pupil in order to control the light that is entered toward the retina through the pupil. عندنا iris تكون pigmented. Why? Because the presence of melanin. It's filled with the melanin. عندنا iris بيها sphincter muscle اللي هي pupillary sphincter، وعندنا pupillary dilator. To narrow the pupil, it happens while we are looking to the bright light, and this is by the effect of the parasympathetic innervation to the pupillary sphincter, to the circular muscle. The sympathetic innervates the longitudinal muscle, which is going to dilate the pupil in dim light, in darker place. When we remove the iris, we have the posterior chamber. The anterior chamber and the posterior chamber filled with the fluid, and this fluid called the aqueous humor. It's very important for nutrition and also to take all the waste product. Within the posterior chamber we have the lens. The lens very important for refraction and also for accommodation. It's going to be transparent. The lens controlled by muscles, and this muscle is called the ciliary muscle. And the ciliary muscle attached to the lens through these fibers, it's called suspensory ligaments or zonules. This is the ciliary muscle with its attachment to the lens. It is innervated by the oculomotor nerve. The oculomotor nerve innervates the ciliary muscle. When the accommodation happens, the ciliary muscle will contract and the suspensory ligament will relax and the lens will become more round. And this is very important for the effect of accommodation and accommodation for the near vision. For the far vision, the ciliary muscle will relax and the suspensory ligament or the zonules will contract and the lens will become wider. We have the ciliary body. The ciliary body, it's a part of the ciliary organ which consists of three important parts: the ciliary body, the ciliary muscle, and the ciliary process. We have the ciliary body, which is very important to secrete the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor will go to the anterior chamber in order to reach the canal of schlemm. And these all structures are part of what we call it the uvea. The uvea consists of three important parts: the ciliary part, the iris, and also the choroid. When we are moving toward the retina, we have this gelatinous material. It occupies the posterior two-thirds of the eye. It is very important to keep the eyeball in its position and in its form. Retina contains important photoreceptors in order to transmit the signals of the light to the optic nerve. The photoreceptors, we have two types of photoreceptors. We have rods and cones. The cones very important for the colored vision and bright light. For dim light, the rods. We have this within the center of the retina. This is called the blind spot of the retina, or the optic disc. And the optic disc, it's a passage for the optic nerve and also for these vessels, the central retinal artery and the central retinal vein. The central retinal artery is a branch from ophthalmic artery. Why it's called the blind spot? Because there is no receptors within this area, so there is no vision happens within this area. We have near the optic disc, we have this area. This is called the macule. It contains within the center of it fovea centralis area, and the fovea centralis filled with the cones receptors, and as we said, the cones very important for bright vision and colored image.